Hi, this is Jeff Spencer, Math 135 instructor for the Community College of Denver, and this is a little video tutorial over how to perform the one var stat function on the TI-83 or 84. Now I have an emulator here on my computer that will be able to show you all the buttons that I press with the mouse key that I'm going to move around. So you'll see what you see normally in the screen for a TI-84. And it also show over here on the right the key history, just in case you want to write down any notes about the order of the buttons that you need to press to do anything. Remember, our TI calculators are a command line system, so my current command line is blank. The icon is blinking, ready for me to basically tell it a command. So a lot of times we're going to have data sets that we want to enter into our calculator and perform the one var stat function so that we can get a list of some numerical summaries of that data set. So we're dealing with quantitative data here, and we're going to have a list of numbers that we're eventually going to want to put in the calculator and do a bunch of stuff with. So make sure before you do anything to clear your screen so that the command line is clear. Eventually we're going to pick functions out of this commands and functions out of this stat portal, and you need to make sure that there are no other commands that would mess with it, otherwise you're going to get an error. If you start getting errors, the first thing I would do is clear the screen and try and redo the command under stat, which I'll probably mention again. So the key button here is stat. Anytime we want to enter data into our calculator, that's the button we press, and we're given this menu, the edit menu. Notice we also have the calculate menu and the test menu. Calculate menu we just access by pressing to the right, but I'm going to go back to the edit menu. We do not use the test menu. So in order to put the data into our calculator, we just basically press stat and then enter on edit. That's the first option, so we can access our list. Or you could press the number 1, it would do the same thing. I'm going to press enter and you'll see your list. Now let's say I already had some numbers in there from a previous problem. They were already in there. This is just a data set from maybe the last problem that you did. So assuming you have some data in there, make sure to clear the data. You make sure that you highlight the list itself. So you got to go up with your arrow key until list 1 or whatever list you want to clear is highlighted, and then you press clear and enter. If you accidentally delete your list, or if at any point you don't have list 1, that's the default list, you really want to have your default list. Sometimes when people clear their list, they accidentally go up to L1 and press delete. Look what happens, list 1 disappears. So in order to get back your list, or if you ever lose list 1 somehow, you go to stat, go down to the 5th option, setup editor, press enter. Oops, 5th option, setup editor, and press enter. And it will basically refresh all your lists. So I'm going to clear my command screen again. I'm going to clear my key history. I'm going to go back into stat and press enter on edit. This is how we basically start the process. If our list is clear, then we're ready to start putting in the data values. So you can start putting in 48, 91, whatever the data values are that you're working with. Just basically put them in as you see them, or however you check them off. So let's say we have a handful of data values here. I'm just punching in random numbers. I'm not getting these numbers from a particular problem. I'm just typing these in. And let's say we have, let me put in 2 more data values so that we have exactly 10 numbers there. So if you scroll back up, notice list 1, the 10th entry is 98. So that's we have 10 numbers in there. Now, one thing that's really helpful is to sort this list. To do that, you go back to stat and you go down to sort ascending. A stands for ascending. If you want to do it the opposite way, you could choose sort descending from biggest to smallest. But I think most of the times we want to choose sort ascending. So you pick that function. And notice it's in the command line, but I haven't performed the function yet. We just picked it out of a list. Also, the command is empty. It's saying sort ascending, and then the parenthesis here, it wants to know what list to sort. In order to tell it what list to perform the function on, you can see L1 is above the number 1, L2 is above the number 2, L3 is above the number 3, and so on. You access the blue keys or the orange keys if you have an 83 by pressing second and then that number to get L1. Press enter and the list is sorted. So if you go back to the list, you press enter on edit to look at it, notice the numbers are in ascending order. That's very nice. Okay, now that we have the data in there all set up in ascending order, oh, let me remind you, the reason why we want to have this in ascending order is if you want to create a stem and leaf, or if you want to find the mode of a data set, this is the easiest way to do it. I can see that 48 repeats, and it looks like 48 is the only value that repeats, so 48 would be the mode. But now it's time to get onto our calculation of 1var stat. So once you have everything in list 1 and sorted, you can go back to stat and over to calculate. Alright, I'm going to clear my key history and press that again. Stat over to calculate. We pick the first function we want. 1var stats is the function that we're going to perform primarily. So you can press 1 or you can press enter. Now, I have the newer look calculator. So on this, it tells me what list I want to put it in, the frequency list, and then I go down to calculate. Some of your older calculators, your 83s, it's going to show basically this command, 1var stat. Now, I already put my data in list 1. Notice it's the default list. So if I just press enter, 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 it'll do my 1var stats to list 1. If you have the traditional look, you can either type second L1 or you can just press enter and it'll give you this same list that I have right here. So it's telling me X bar, the sample mean, is 59.1. This summation notation right here is means the sum of all the data values. So if we add them all up, we get 591. This one represents the sum of all data values squared. So if you take all the data values, square them, and then add them all up, you get 42,987. However, we're not really going to use these two lines for our statistics class. They are used in parts of formulas if you want to use other formulas, but we're going to do those on the calculator as well. SX here stands for the sample standard deviation. It's an estimator of the population standard deviation, sigma x. We talk about that in 3.2. Then n equaling 10 means that we have a sample size of 10 and that there are 10 data values that you put in there, which I mentioned earlier. Notice the arrow down, it says there's more information. If you scroll down until it stops, you get the second half of the list. It goes from the min to the max, and this is called the 5-number summary. Min is 10, the minimum value, is 10. Q1 stands for the first quartile. We'll talk about that later when we get to, I think, 3.5 or 6. And then the median, MED, is 56.5. Q3 is 91. And the maximum value that we put in is 98. You can always scroll back up and look back at the mean or the median or anything that you need to do. Later on, we're going to compute a variance, which is you find the variance by squaring the standard deviation. So looking at this, 28.39 is the standard deviation. I can just type that right now, 28.39 squared, to get the variance. So you can go right out of that stat menu, the 1var stat menu, to do basic functions like this. If you ever want to pull up the list again, just make sure your screen is cleared and there's no commands. Go back to stat, over to calculate, and pick 1var stats, and you'll get it again. Enter, 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 and it regenerates the list. Now, if you're ever like stuck in a menu and you feel like pressing clear, you can't get out, or what's happening, the way to get out of generally anything so you get back to the command screen is to always press second and quit, and that will get you back to the command screen that you can then clear, and you can go back into stat and do whatever you want, whether it be populate and edit lists, whether it be sorting lists, or whether it be going over to calculation and doing 1var stat. So second quit is the way to get out of some of this stuff. Clear sometimes works, but not all the time. So I'm like, oh, I'm in this list, I need to get out. Second quit, and it'll get you the command screen. Remember though, before you perform any of these functions, all these are functions: sort ascending, sort descending, 1var stats. you got to make sure your command line is clear. When you pick that function, it'll show up in a command line like that, and the command line has to be clear, otherwise it'll give an error. So watch this video again if you need to. Go through any of the steps. You need to get comfortable entering in a data set and doing one var stat. Eventually, by the time you get to exam 1, you have to know what all these values are and mean. Best of luck, and we'll see you next time.